Congress has said it plans on going on strike from Wednesday, considering the situation of things in Nigeria. National Economic Council has endorsed a new national development blueprint for Somalia. American President Joe Biden delivers Oval Office remarks on United States avoiding default taxes. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. Welcome to the 1 p.m. news edition with Hazel Ogoigbe, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Cotonou. Now to the news in details. I'm starting from the news in brief. An Australian mother jailed for killing her 4 young children was pardoned and released on Monday after 20 years behind bars, ending what authorities call the terrible ordeal. Now, Kathleen Fulbeek was dubbed Australia's worst female serial killer after she was convicted in 2003 of murdering 3 of her children and the manslaughter of a 4th child. Now, the prosecutor argued she suffocated the children, who died between the ages of 9 weeks and 3 years. But Fulbeek has steadfastly maintained each death was due to natural causes. In 2021, dozens of scientists from Australia and abroad signed a petition calling for Fulbeek's release, saying new forensic evidence suggested the unexplained deaths were linked to rare genetic mutilation or congenital abnormalities. Now, New South Wales Attorney General Michael Daly said Fulbeek had been pardoned following an inquiry launched in May 2022 that established reasonable doubt surrounding the convictions. Crossing over to Nigeria, Nigeria's main labor union, Nigeria Labour Congress, has said it plans to go on strike from Wednesday, protesting against a hike in food prices and what was the first big test for the West African nation's new president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, after he scrapped fuel subsidy. For information, the following report.
Nigeria's main labor union has said it plans to go on strike from Wednesday to protest against the tripling of fuel prices in what would be the first big test for new President Bola Tinubu after he scrapped a costly fuel subsidy. The price increase has led to a sharp rise in transport fares.
The NNPC, a private limited liability company that illegally announced a price regime in the oil sector, refuses to revert itself for negotiations to continue, that the Nigerian Labour Congress and all its affiliates will withdraw their services and commence protests nationwide.
The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, after an emergency meeting of the union's executive in the capital, Abuja, said all its affiliates will withdraw their services and commence protests nationwide.
That until a government is properly constituted and the people who will negotiate with Labour are such people with mandate and capacity to commit the government of the day, such negotiations may not be valid wherever.
Nigeria's fuel subsidy cost the government billions of dollars annually, but was popular as it helped keep prices low. The government says lifting the subsidy will help it alleviate a funding crisis.
Away from that, crossing over to the news in brief. The United Nations Children's Fund says it is mobilizing resources to improve access to quality education by the poor and vulnerable children in Kaduna State, Nigeria. Now, UNICEF country representative in Nigeria stated this in Kaduna on Sunday during the annual UNICEF Access Bank Charity Shield Polio Tournament, a 5th Chuka Country Polo Club. On the Somalian scene, Somalia's National Economic Council has endorsed a new national development blueprint. Now, it seeks to usher in what President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed's government calls an era of stability and prosperity to ensure high living standards for the people of Somalia.
In 2060, Somalia will mark 100 years since gaining independence from the British and Italian colonial authorities respectively. Somalia's National Economic Council recently endorsed the Centennial Vision 2060 as a new national development blueprint. It will anchor the country's future development plans. Hassan Adam Hosso is the Executive Director of Somalia's National Economic Council. He also serves as President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's Chief Economic Advisor. He says Somalia cannot remain in its current state and must change.
Centennial Vision 2060 is a long-term development blueprint envisioning a developed, free and prosperous Somalia that is globally competitive and region leader by the year 2060. We cannot remain hostage to the current status quo where our people live in abject poverty, political instability and insecurity. So we want our people to move from the current status quo into an era where they enjoy the life they deserve.
Authorities say Mission 2060 is a significant step forward for Somalia's development strategy and serves as proof of the government's commitment to a long-term plan.
As part of the development of this vision, we'll be engaging in extensive consultations with the federal member states and the private sector and all walks of life. However, we have now a number of core pillars and core principles. The core principles to start with are to articulate the core national values of this country. Second is provide homegrown solutions to our ills and problems. And third is a shared commitment to the implementation and the development of this vision.
During the recently concluded Somalia Economic Conference, Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Barre urged partners to look beyond the country's current and past challenges and invest in it.
To our international partners, I urge you to see beyond the challenges that Somalia has faced in the past. Look at the immense opportunities that await you here. Invest in our industries, transfer your technology and expertise, and be a catalyst for change.
With the gradual return of peace and stability to the Horn of African nation, the Somali government is working to capitalize on the unexplored natural resources such as oil and gas in its Indian Ocean territory. That process requires huge investment in terms of manpower and financial resources. Somalia's Vision 2060 is working on to boost the economic potentials in sectors like agriculture and livestock to achieve a self-sufficient country.
Still on the Somalian scene, Somalia's leaders have agreed to introduce direct elections from next year, starting with local council elections before parliamentary and presidential poll processes. Now, the agreement, which also abolishes the office of the Prime Minister, must be ratified by the Parliament before its implementation.
Following his re-election last year, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud pledged to move this country to a universal suffrage process. The journey has started now. After days of discussions in Mogadishu, President Sheikh Mohamud, together with 5 regional state leaders, have agreed to start one-man, one-vote process.
We are moving this country from the previous election model, where elders of about 50 to 100 delegates selected leaders in the federal and regional systems of power. We now go to the people to decide, starting from local council elections to the office of the president, which should be decided by the voters. And that is our plan.
Opposition politicians, including former president and prime minister, have called the move unconstitutional. But President Sheikh Mohamud ruled out their concerns.
The proposals we put forward for the people to decide through voting is not a Quranic revelation. We can debate about the plan in our parliament, with civil society organizations, in our mosques, even in the roads and restaurants and everywhere. At the end of the discussions, what citizens want is what matters.
Recently concluded local elections in Puntland State in northeastern Somalia has proved that, with improving security, democracy through the ballot is also possible in other peaceful regions. Some of the citizens in Mogadishu have also welcomed President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud's plan to introduce one-man, one-vote process.
Yes, one man, one vote is very possible in Somalia. I'm sure the process will end challenges such as political crisis and tribalism there.
I recommend let's first conduct a sample poll process where millions take part and also involved in at least 4 political parties, and I think that will result in transparency and dialogue, leading to a free and fair electoral process.
The last elections where Somali citizens took part in the ballot was conducted in 1969 parliamentary elections. Since then, direct polls was conducted in the country to elect leaders, including the president.
Peace and tranquility has returned to Senegal after the uprising against the fact that Ousmane Sonko was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. That's the update of the story I'm about to read right about now. Now, the story says tensions remained high in Senegal on Saturday after fresh overnight clashes brought the death toll to 15 in 2 days since a court convicted opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. Now, Sonko's ongoing legal woes have prompted rare flare-up violence in Senegal, typically a bastion of stability in West Africa, and foreign allies have urged a return to calm, and right now Senegal is calm.
In Senegal, the so-called Freedom Convoy was forced to a halt. Vehicles departed the fief of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko on Friday. The police eventually ended Sonko's journey across the country on Sunday as they arrested the politician and forcibly returned him to his Dakar home further north. Senegal's interior minister cited clashes between supporters of the Pastef party leader and the police. Authorities added 1 man had been killed. Sonko, who said he will run in the 2024 presidential election, embarked on a 500-kilometer-long journey to reach Senegal's capital from Ziguinchor. The 48-year-old hoped the popular convoy would enable him to fight a final fight. A criminal court is due to deliver on June 1st a long-awaited verdict in Sonko's rape case. The mayor of the city of Ziguinchor refused to appear in court, claiming that the government plotted to bar him from running in next year's election. In addition to a possible conviction, he risks losing his eligibility.
Preview to that, on Thursday last week, a criminal court in Dakar sentenced Senegalese opposition politician Ousmane Sonko, a candidate in the 2024 presidential elections, to 2 years imprisonment on charges of corrupting young people while acquitting him of rape. However, the reclassification of the offense as a misdemeanor under the Electoral Code appears to maintain the threat of ineligibility for Mr. Ousmane Sonko and his ability to stand in for the 2024 presidential elections in Senegal. On Thursday, a criminal court in Dakar sentenced Senegalese opposition politician Ousmane Sonko, a candidate in the 2024 presidential election, to 2 years imprisonment on the charge of corrupting young people while acquitting him of rape. The criminal division also sentenced Mr. Sonko's co-accused Ndeye Kadi Ndiaye, the owner of the beauty salon where Mr. Sonko was accused of repeatedly abusing a female employer, to 2 years imprisonment. The corruption of the youth, which consists of poaching or encouraging the debauchery of a young person under the age of 21, is an offense under Senegalese law and not a crime like rape, a lawyer present at the hearing stated. Ousmane Sonko would have been stripped of his electoral rights if he had been convicted in absentia of a crime such as rape. However, the reclassification of the offense as a misdemeanor under the Electoral Code appears to maintain the threat of ineligibility for Mr. Sonko and his abilities to stand in the 2024 presidential election in Senegal. Riots have broken out in Senegal's capital, Dakar, on Thursday after the court sentenced the leading opposition politician
to 2 years in jail for corrupting youth, undermining his chances in running for presidency come 2024. University law professor Indiak Fo stated that Usman Sonko could demand a retrial if he gives himself in to the authorities. The rape case has triggered violent protests in the West African country Senegal since 2021. Sonko supporters denounced the charges as a ploy to prevent Sonko's running in next year's presidential election. The government and the justice system deny this. Sonko's pastor party said the verdict was part of a political plot and called on citizens to take to the streets. Violence erupted at a central university campus, where protesters set a car alight and threw rocks at riot police, who responded by firing tear gas at them. A former tax inspector who came third in the election, Sonko, has tapped into frustrations with President Macky Sall that have grown since he was elected in 2012. Critics say Macky Sall has failed to create jobs and has stifled opposition criticisms amidst rumor he may seek to bypass presidential term limits and run again next year. Sall has neither confirmed nor denied this statement. Usman Sonko has garnered strong support among the young, many of whom have responded to his calls to take to the streets to protest against his judicial problems, prompting security crackdowns that have led to death. Demonstrations are not uncommon in Senegal and typically increase around elections, but Sall's second term has been particularly turbulent for Senegal, a country usually viewed as one of West Africa's strongest democracy.
Crossing over to the news in brief, gunmen burst into a room at a men's hostel near the eastern South African city of Durban, killing 8 people and leaving 2 others injured, police stated on Sunday in the latest mass shooting in South Africa. 7 men were declared dead immediately after the shooting in the pre-dawn hours of Saturday in the Ulmalzi township. And 8 men died on Sunday, the police said. 2 others are hospitalized with injuries, and they include a man who jumped out of the window of the hostel room to escape the gunfire. Now, the police said that the 12 men were in the room drinking alcohol when numerous gunmen broke in, shot at them, and they all fled. 2 of the men in the room were unhurt. Now, on the foreign scene, President Joe Biden delivers Oval Office remarks on U.S. avoiding default. Now, Fiscal Responsibility Act legislation suspects the debt limit. More information in the following report.
Since coming into office in early 2021, President Joe Biden has never directly addressed the nation from the Oval Office until Friday.
No one got everything they wanted, but the American people got what they needed. We averted an economic crisis, an economic collapse.
On Saturday, Biden is signing the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which was passed overwhelmingly in the House and the Senate earlier this week.
On this vote, the yeas are 63, the nays are 36.
The measure allows the government to continue to borrow more money over the next 19 months to meet its obligations. It stops the U.S. from going into default, which could wreak havoc in global financial systems. Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who negotiated the deal with Biden, emphasized the savings, saying the bill has the biggest spending cuts Congress has ever voted for.
This is going to be law. $2.1 trillion.
Raising the debt ceiling is a routine process that has been done 78 times since 1960, but since 2011 has been a source of conflict when there's divided government. Many are now pushing to reform the process, including through proposed legislation that requires lawmakers to annually vote on policies to reduce the debt while automatically suspending the debt ceiling.
It would bring the two together, but in a way that would de-risk the debt limit and really take this idea of default off the table once and for all by tying it to the annual budget process.
The U.S. is now $31.4 trillion in debt and is racking up even more. The Congressional Budget Office projects a federal budget deficit of $1.5 trillion for 2023, which could nearly double to $2.7 trillion by 2033.
The National Petroleum Company Limited on Nigeria on Wednesday morning officially increased fuel pump price to more than 500 in different parts of Nigeria. Now, Nigeria's National Petroleum Corporation station pegged fuel prices at 537 naira per litre in Abuja, the state capital. The National Petroleum Company Limited on Wednesday morning officially increased fuel pump price to more than 500 naira in different parts of Nigeria. Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation station pegged fuel price at 537 naira per litre in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, during his inaugural address on Monday, announced that petrol subsidy was gone with no budgetary allocation to fund this announcement. Tinubu said government funding subsidy can no longer justify its ever-increasing cost in the wake of drying resources. A document seen by The Guardian earlier Wednesday showed pricing variety in different parts of Nigeria, indicating a sharp increase from the previous 184 naira per litre official pump price to more than 500 naira per litre. President Tinubu's speech on Monday was instantly greeted by long queues at petrol stations across Nigeria, with many citizens being unaware of the cause of the sudden fuel scarcity. By Tuesday morning, many petrol stations sold fuel for over 400 naira, while the official pump price was still at 184 naira per litre. This is amid scarcity and panic buying by Nigerians. A spokesperson for Nigerian petrol marketer Yakubu Sulaiman said they are supporting the deregulation of the industry by removing subsidy. A country that can survive without deregulating the economy, Sulaiman added. He, however, assured Nigerians of his commitment to ensuring a ceaseless supply of the product. Before the fighting broke out in Sudan, Chad had at least 600,000 refugees, with over 2.3 million people facing acute food shortages. Now, Chad is also ranked thirdly among the world's poorest countries. More information in the following report.
In Chad's border village of Kafron, Sudanese refugees are settling in. Sadi Abdekarim Mohammad's family has set up a makeshift structure right outside the house of a distant relative.
Here in Chad, our Chadian relatives have welcomed us and put us up in their homes, sharing food and all comforts with us. We lack nothing, but we hope the situation in our country will stabilize so that we can return home, God willing.
The homestead belongs to Yaqub Muhammad Abdel Karim, a local chief who is hosting 11 Sudanese families.
They have realized that the authorities cannot guarantee their safety. We welcomed them into our homes and shared with them our food and the comforts of home. As you can see, some have set up tents in front of the house.
The Chadians themselves say they don't have much after 4 consecutive years of acute food shortages. But some have a little more to share with their needy Sudanese guests. The swelling population here is, however, putting a strain on resources and is driving up the cost of food.
A kilogram of cereal flour used to cost $1. Now it costs between $1 and 60 cents. A 25-kilogram bag of wheat flour used to cost $21. Now it costs $34. The prices have gone up by so much.
The Central African nation was already grappling with humanitarian challenges before the new arrivals. Chad ranks among the world's poorest countries and has a huge refugee burden of over 600,000 people. Now the World Food Programme warns that 2.3 million people are in urgent need of food aid.
Intercommunal violence and fighting between Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces in Western Darfur State have intensified in recent days. More information in the following report.
It's around 8 a.m. in Adre, Chad, a town on the country's border with Sudan. Chadian citizens are returning from Janina, the capital of West Darfur State, which some experts say has experienced more intense fighting than Sudan's capital, Khartoum, in recent weeks. One returnee spoke to VOA just after crossing the border from Sudan. She asked to remain anonymous to protect her family's safety.
It started at the beginning of Ramadan. A lot of problems. They burned the houses and killed people too. A lot of them. At first, they were on the outskirts of the city, but then they came to the interior neighborhoods. They robbed the market. They broke everything, especially in stores and markets. They took everything from them.
The
returnees say they fled the city under the cover of darkness to avoid being shot. Moments later, horse-drawn carts carrying Sudanese refugees fleeing Janina arrive. Sudanese refugee Abdul Anasser Abdallah Adam described how much of the city was affected by the fighting.
All of it. Militants burned all the military campsites. Nothing left. Everything was destroyed and robbed. I mean, all the facilities of the city are now destroyed, starting from hospitals, police stations, schools, etc.
Fighting between Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces, which this video purports to show, is tearing the city apart. It's unclear how many people have been killed in Janina since the fighting began. Since May 19th, the cell phone networks in the city have stopped working altogether, leading many to worry about the fate of relatives and associates still there. Mathilde Vu of the Norwegian Refugee Council say the aid group fears the worst for its colleagues in the city.
West Darfur has seen very high level of violence. So this past month, there's been several attacks. There's been complete mayhem basically in the middle of the city with shelling of residential areas, of snipers targeting people. There's been completely burned down of displacement camps, and a lot of people have had to flee somewhere in the city, but nowhere is actually safe.
The population of Janina was around 250,000, but tens of thousands have fled to refugee sites in Chad like Barota. Refugees say it's dangerous to leave the city and dangerous to stay. So many people simply don't know what to do. The International Committee of the Red Cross, or ICRC, says the humanitarian situation is dire.
Access to food is getting increasingly difficult. About 3 million people that were there displaced even before the current crisis. So people, they have been through a lot already, and their resilience have been weakened by all these multiple challenges. And now they are facing this new round of violence where they have to flee their homes again.
Many Sudan watchers on social media complain that media attention has focused broadly on fighting in Khartoum, giving less attention to the intense fighting in West Darfur.
And now, dear viewers, this is where I conclude today's 1 p.m. news, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa with Hazel Ogoigbe. Thanks for tuning in. Join me by 6 p.m. for Vocal Point. Enjoy the rest of your day.